Welcome to Life Stories, where one mother discovered that being invisible in your own home hurts more than being alone in the world. She cooked the dinner, she fluffed the pillows, she waited all night with a heart full of hope, only to realize she was no longer a mother in her daughter's eyes, but a maid with no name. What do you do when the people you love most treat you like background noise? This is the story of a woman who spent 20 years giving everything until the day she gave nothing back. And what happened next? It shook her family to the core. Stay with us because sometimes the person who walks away isn't weak, she's finally free. Let's begin. Claire had been up since dawn. The air outside was still holding on to winter's breath, dry and sharp, the kind that made your skin crack and your thoughts feel fragile. Her wool sweater clung to her like armor as she heard the rows of the Chicago farmers market, hand-picking rosemary, fingerling potatoes, and a perfect organic chicken. She wanted everything to be right. Madison was coming home. By the time Claire returned, her small craftsman-style house smelled like a Thanksgiving dream. Roasted garlic, melting butter, and thyme wafting through the air. The soft hum of Norah Jones played on the speaker. The table was set with linen napkins and heirloom china, each piece carefully polished. She fluffed the cushions on the couch, adjusted the curtains for just the right amount of light, and placed a single pine-scented candle in the center of the table. Everything was ready. She checked the clock. 6:58 p.m. Her heart beat a little faster. Madison had always loved roasted chicken and mashed potatoes growing up. Claire still remembered how her daughter used to giggle when she'd help mash the potatoes, wearing her little red apron. That memory tugged gently at her now. The front door opened at exactly 7:06. Claire stood up quickly, hands instinctively smoothing her sweater, smile ready, arms already beginning to lift for an embrace. But Madison didn't look at her. Instead, she darted straight into her father Lucas's arms with a gleeful bounce. "Dad, I got a $5,000 bonus this year." Claire froze mid-step. Lucas, who hadn't even peeled a potato in years, lit up with theatrical pride. "That's my girl," he beamed, ruffling her hair. "You're killing it out there." Then came the rest. Lucas's brother Eric and his wife Rachel, followed by Lucas's aging parents, Diane and Walter. They descended like a holiday parade, all noise and admiration. "Madison, you are the pride of this family," Diane gushed as she kissed her cheek. Claire stood just outside the circle, her smile faltering. She'd cooked, cleaned, planned. She'd raised Madison through the tantrums, the heartbreaks, the college applications. Yet tonight, she was a ghost in her own home. Still, she stepped forward, holding on to warmth. "Long day? I made your favorites. Want me to heat them up?" Madison didn't even look at her. "Mom, can we not do the whole 20 questions thing right now?" The words were a slap. Claire blinked. "I just thought, honestly, it's exhausting." Madison crouched and unzipped her suitcase, her mood brightening again. She pulled out a stack of red envelopes and placed them on the coffee table like a magician about to unveil a trick. Eric leaned in. "Wow, someone's been doing well." "These are little thank yous for everyone who supported me this year," Madison said, her voice practically singing. "Dad, this one's for you. A $1,000 Visa gift card. Grandpa and Grandma, $300 each to the spa. Eric and Rachel, 200 gourmet gift cards." Claire waited. Maybe Madison was saving hers for last. Something more personal. Maybe a handwritten note. Then came a final envelope. "Oh, almost forgot," Madison giggled. She scooped up Peanut, the family dog, kissed her fur, and tucked the envelope into her sweater collar. "This one's for you, Peanut. You've been such a good girl." There was silence. Claire's hand hovered midair, frozen between hope and heartbreak. She swallowed and asked gently, "Madison, what about me?" Madison looked up and blinked as if the question itself was inappropriate. "Mom, you don't work. You're home all day. You didn't really help me with anything career-related. I mean, you cook and stuff. That's your choice." Lucas shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Claire stood there, rooted. The room around her faded. Only her daughter's voice remained, chilling, dismissive, rehearsed. It wasn't just the absence of a gift. It was the absence of recognition, of worth. Then, with the dramatic flair of a show finale, Madison added, "Oh, and I've booked flights for everyone. New Year's in Hawaii. We leave tomorrow night." Claire's breath caught. She scanned the table, searching for her name, her boarding pass, a sign she was included. Nothing. She looked up. "I don't see mine?" Madison shrugged. "You're staying behind. Someone has to watch Peanut. She loves you. It's perfect." Claire's heart thudded in her chest, loud as thunder. "You want me to stay behind and dog sit while the entire family flies to Hawaii without me?" "Don't be dramatic," Madison sighed. "I'll take you next year. Chill, okay?" That's when it happened. Claire's hand moved before her mind could stop it. The plate of cookies she'd baked, Madison's favorite ginger snaps, crashed to the floor. Porcelain shards scattered. The room went silent. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Diane snapped. Lucas stood, jaw clenched. "Claire, you're embarrassing yourself." Claire let out a sharp laugh. "This is what it takes, huh? To be seen? I have to break something to matter?" She tore off her apron and walked away. In the bedroom, she threw clothes into a bag with trembling hands. Her breath came in quick gasps. She wasn't sure where she was going, only that she couldn't stay. Rachel knocked softly. "Claire, please don't go. It's late. Just talk to her." Madison's voice called from the living room. "Let her go. She'll come crawling back. She always does." That was the twist. That was the moment Claire realized. Her daughter wasn't just selfish. She was cruel. And Claire? Claire was done teaching people how to mistreat her. She stepped into the night and called her mother. "Eleanor," she whispered into the phone. "I'm not coming home for the holidays. I need to disappear for a while." There was a pause. Then her mother said softly, "That sounds like a good idea, sweetheart." 10 minutes later, Claire's phone buzzed. $20,000 had been transferred to her account. The note read, "For your own life, non-refundable." Claire didn't cry. She booked a flight to Iceland instead. Not to run, but to return to herself. Have you ever realized too late that someone you love doesn't see your worth? What would it take for you to finally choose yourself over family expectations? The moment Claire landed in Reykjavik, the snow wasn't the only thing beginning to fall. What came next would change everything. The first morning in Iceland tasted like freedom and snow. Claire sat by the frosted hotel window, wrapped in a wool blanket, a mug of black coffee warming her hands. Outside, the city of Reykjavik stretched quiet and pale under a powder blue sky. It wasn't extravagant, this boutique hotel on the edge of town, but it was hers. Every scent, every shadow, every breath of silence, hers alone. She hadn't told anyone where she was going. Not Lucas. Not Madison. And as the plane had cut through the clouds the night before, a strange sensation had settled in her chest. Not fear, not guilt, just stillness. It was as if, for the first time in 20 years, her body had room to exist without performing. She turned her phone back on. 39 missed calls. Lucas, Madison, even Diane. Claire didn't open any of them. Instead, she pulled on her coat and stepped into the snow. Iceland welcomed her with its quiet power. Frozen waterfalls that looked like marble curtains, streets lit by soft lanterns, strangers who nodded with respect but didn't pry. That afternoon, standing beneath the northern lights, Claire took a photo, one hand in her pocket, the other holding a cup of glögg. She captioned it simply, "Feels like a dream." Within minutes, a voice message landed in her inbox. Madison's voice, high-pitched, furious. "How could you? You're using Dad's money to run off like this? You think this is empowerment? You're just being selfish." Claire stared at the screen, then deleted the message without listening to the rest. But that night, something else arrived. Something far colder. An email from Lucas. Subject regarding shared finances. Message: "I've spoken with an attorney. Given the timing of your mother's transfer and our legal status, we will need to review which assets count as marital property. I'm not trying to fight, just protect what's fair." Claire froze. The money. The gift. The single act of love her mother had offered without conditions, now being reclassified as marital property. Lucas wanted a slice. Of course he did. She scrolled down. Attached was a PDF labeled Mitchell Financial Assessment. He'd compiled a list of joint assets: accounts, investments, even the equity in the home Claire had spent 2 decades maintaining. Her breath caught when she reached the final page. He'd even included the trust fund Eleanor had just transferred. Claire stood slowly and walked to the bathroom. She looked in the mirror, not at her face, at her eyes. They were different now. Not frantic, not unsure, just focused. This was never about the money. Not really. It was about control. Lucas didn't want her to have money. He wanted her to ask for it. Claire reached for her phone and called her lawyer, Heather Donovan, a friend from college who'd once offered help during a late-night wine conversation, back when everything still felt like a faraway someday. "Heather," Claire said, voice steady, "I need to make it official. Divorce. Full separation. I want the paperwork filed within the week." There was a pause. Then Heather said quietly, "Claire, I've been waiting for this call for 15 years." The next morning, Claire froze all joint accounts and transferred her portion into a new private account under her own name. She changed passwords, closed credit cards, deleted shared cloud access. She updated her will, removed names, Madison's included. Later that day, Claire received another message from her daughter. But this one was different. The voice was quiet, cracking. "Mom, I think I messed up." Claire didn't respond. 2 days later, there've been layoffs at work. I don't know what to do. 3 days later, I'm overdrawn. I didn't realize how much I'd spent. I could really use your advice. Claire still didn't reply, but something inside her began to ache. Not the old ache of guilt or obligation, but something messier. The ache of history, of a mother's love refusing to die, even when logic demanded it. Could someone who wounds you so deeply still be worth grieving? She didn't know the answer, but she did know she wasn't ready to let that ache steer the wheel again. Instead, she installed recording software on her phone and waited. She didn't trust this phase of sweetness. She'd seen too many apologies used like keys, unlocking the door only to re-enter with sharper knives. The fifth night brought the twist she expected. A voicemail, cracked with tears but sharp underneath. "Did you change your bank password? I tried logging in to check the utilities, and it says I'm locked out. Are you really doing this to your own daughter?" Claire listened in silence. Then she hit record. "I've upgraded my account security," she replied calmly. "The bank recommended it. Identity theft is on the rise." Madison's next message was fire. "I'm your daughter. You're seriously protecting your accounts from me?" Claire's hands were still. "I asked for some paperwork last month," she said in her reply. "If you want to help, send that. But please don't touch my accounts again." Then came the silence, the dangerous silence. And finally, the snap. "You think you're so above us now. Just because Grandma gave you a few bucks, you think you're untouchable. You've lived off Dad for 20 years. You owe us." Claire hit record again, her voice like steel. "Madison, this call is being recorded and will be forwarded to my legal team. I'm also pursuing a no-contact order. Please don't call again." That was the moment it hit her. She wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was done being devoured. She was fireproof. Have you ever had to let go of someone you love deeply because they became the very thing holding you back? But Claire's greatest reckoning wasn't behind her. It was waiting just beyond her return flight. And what she would face next would test everything she'd rebuilt. Continue reading in the next part. Claire stepped off the plane into the thick humidity of Chicago summer. It wasn't the same city she'd left behind that winter. Or maybe it was. But she wasn't the same woman. She rolled her suitcase behind her, crisp slacks pressed, a navy blouse tucked cleanly at her waist. Her heels clicked on the tile like punctuation marks. She wasn't moving quietly anymore. She wasn't shrinking into corners or lowering her voice to avoid making others uncomfortable. She was here on purpose. The courthouse sat like a stone sentinel at the edge of downtown. Claire arrived 10 minutes early. Heather, her lawyer, met her on the front steps, holding 2 lattes and a folder thick with receipts, affidavits, account statements, and months of meticulous preparation. Lucas was already inside. He wore the same charcoal gray suit he'd worn the day they got married. That thought should have stung. It didn't. Inside the courtroom, Claire sat still and straight, her hands folded neatly on the table in front of her. Lucas's lawyer began with a performance so polished it almost gleamed, painting Claire as the runaway wife, the emotionally unstable housemaker, the woman who'd abandoned her family for a European vacation. Claire didn't flinch. When it was her turn, Heather stood and laid everything out: the financial independence, the separation timeline, the nature of the trust from Eleanor. And then, finally, the voice recordings. The judge, a calm, sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, listened. And when she ruled, her words were clear. The funds in question were a post-separation personal gift. Mr. Mitchell has no legal claim. Lucas's jaw locked. Claire saw it, that twitch of disbelief like a man who dropped his cards and realized the game had changed. But the real win wasn't the ruling. It was what came next. Claire didn't go home. Not to Lucas's house. Not even to her mother's. Instead, she walked into the local library and filled out a volunteer application. It was something she'd wanted to do for years, back when books were her only escape. When her days were filled with cleaning up others' messes, reading had been her quiet act of rebellion. Now, it would be her contribution. 3 days later, she was helping a woman in her 70s figure out how to print a Social Security form. When the woman looked up and said, "You're more patient than my own daughter," Claire smiled, not with bitterness, but with understanding. She walked home that evening with a paper bag of fresh rolls from the bakery and a small basil plant for her windowsill. Her apartment was modest, but full of light. No voices told her what to do. No one judged the silence. The freedom felt like air after a lifetime underwater. Then one day, a letter came. No return address. Claire opened it slowly. The handwriting was unmistakable. Madison. The note was only 3 sentences long. "I got offered a job in New York. It's small, but it's mine. I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be someone new." There was no phone number, no email, just the quiet hope of being heard without demanding a response. Claire sat with the letter in her lap for a long time, and for the first time in months, she cried. But this time, the tears weren't for what she had lost. They were for what she had found. That night, she took out the journal her mother had given her the week she left. Inside, Eleanor had written one line: "You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that keeps you small." Claire flipped to the last page and wrote, "Madison, I hope the world is kind to you. But more than that, I hope you learn to be kind to yourself. Maybe someday, our paths will cross again, not as mother and daughter, but as 2 women who survived the same storm and found their way out." Weeks passed, then months. Claire's life became something soft but steady. She took up pottery at the community center, learned to make sourdough, spoke at a panel for women over 50 reclaiming their independence. She even started a podcast, quiet episodes recorded at her kitchen table, her voice steady as she told her story in pieces, not to relive the pain, but to offer a lantern for someone else walking that same dark road. And people listened. One day at the farmer's market, a woman in her 20s approached her, phone in hand. "Are you Claire Mitchell?" she asked. Claire blinked, nodded. The girl's voice wavered. "Your podcast saved my life." Claire didn't know what to say, so she did the only thing she could. She reached out and hugged her. And in that moment, something inside her that had always felt fractured clicked back into place. One evening, just before the sun slipped behind the lake, Claire visited her mother's grave. She brought white roses and a small folded note. As she knelt down and pressed the note against the stone, her voice trembled. "You were right, Mom. I'm okay now." She didn't need a dramatic finale. No applause. No full circle reunions. Just the quiet triumph of still being here, living, breathing, free. And just before she walked away, her phone buzzed. An email. Subject line: "Application approved." She'd been accepted to the library's adult literacy program. Next week, she'd begin tutoring women who never learned to read. Claire smiled. The girl who had once been ignored at her own dinner table was now giving other women the voice no one ever gave her. What part of Claire's journey stayed with you the most? Was there a moment that reminded you of your own story? If this story moved you, comment 100 below. Tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to know which country you're in. And if you believe someone else needs to hear this, share it with a friend. Thank you for watching Life Stories.